Hey everyone, and welcome to another stream. Sorry, I'm just setting up my things so I can get started nicely. And I also have to find my glasses as well. Let's see. Cool. So we're gonna be working on the Angular Cookbook. I'm gonna be working on the second edition of the book, but I can also take questions and chat. So feel free to ask questions. I think on the right side, maybe we can take chat as well. Let's see if I can find it. Chat. There you go. Let's move the chat to around here, but let's move it all the way up. There we go. There we go. Cool. Not too bad. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the cookbook, and we are also going to implement some tests with Angular and Cypress. So that's pretty much it. And feel free to ask any questions in the meantime, and I should be able to answer those as well. Let's bring this guy a bit down. There we go. Much better. Right, so let me show you which app we're talking about. So this is the app we were looking at. So this is the app that we are working with. Ideally, we are able to submit a version, but the version has to be correct. So for example, 0.0.2, we're supposed to be able to submit that. The latest version changes to this. We also have this changed as well. But if I wanted to remove anything, then it says version number is required. I click it, nothing happens. I don't see the mouse over cursor pointer as well. But if I have something that is invalid, I see an error, and then I can do 0.0.3 or 0.0.2, and even then you can see it doesn't submit because it's the same as previous one. 0.0.3 does it. Danish, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Good, how are you? So yeah, and the tests that we have. Where's my test? The test should be right here. So the tests are here. The tests pass, which is awesome. And now I've put the test in the book as well. So I'm just going to be editing some content in the book right here as well. Making as built for test slide. Is that freelance work or is that office work? We check if the button is disabled in our test. We do this by doing so in our tests. What do we have? What do we have here? So in our test, the first thing that we check is be disabled. Yes. So be disabled assertion on the submit button as follows. Okay. So as amazing teams. No. How do we write it? how it works. Start by implementing some page objects in our app POTS. So can we open this one in here so we can see both of them? Close. CY. So we should be able to see at least this. All right, so we start with creating the page objects. So we start by implementing some page objects in our app dot po.ts file. Since we can reuse those methods to get the elements easily. And since our apps logic has a rule that submits one should be disabled until we have a correct version or a valid version in the version input, we check if the button is disabled. We use the be disabled assertion on the submit button as follows. And then here we can say blah blah blah. Button should be disabled. So we are actually gonna say this guy. Okay. Then we use the type. Use the type method on the get version input or when you look at your first edition after so long, you are like, oh, I could have done so much better. Yes, I could have. All right, so we then use the get version input the type statement to type type in the desired values in the version input and check if the button is disabled either when we have an invalid value for the version input or no value entered. Or but what happens in the app if I try to refresh, and if I go refresh and if I hit submit, so nothing happens if I do submit. So yeah, or no value, then good, cool, looks fine so far. Then the next test that we do is should have the button disabled on invalid input, which gets the input, then asserts this to be disabled, gets the input again, clears it, and you will see that that is essentially the point where we get some. Oh, can I zoom in? No. So this is the point where we have the error. So getting it, then clearing the input, and that's when the data shows. So that's good. Or when the error shows, then we expect the errors, and then if everything is okay, then the submit button is enabled. Cool. Because that's what our app does as well. If I say invalid input, I see the error. If I remove everything, I see version number required. And if I have a correct value, then the button gets enabled as well. I'm seeing this live after a while. Let me know what is going on. I'm working on the Angular Cookbook, and the Angular Cookbook is a book which has a lot of recipes. So you start with a problem, you solve it by following the recipe. So this app, we start building the end-to-end tests. So this chapter is chapter 11, which has Cypress end-to-end tests. And in this one, we implement the end-to-end test from scratch. So we are looking at an app which is supposed to help the user submit a new version for any single application, so to say. And we are looking at the end-to-end test for this one. So there are certain use cases like having a version that is valid according to semantic versioning only allows or only then the submit button gets enabled. When we submit it, it gets added here, latest version shows here, and then we can do the same things. So the when someone or when the reader of the book follows the recipe completely, they end up having all these tests which pass. So if I run this, you can see Cypress goes ahead and performs all these things automatically. So fills things in the input and checks if the submit button is disabled or enabled. And yeah, if all of these tests are working, then we are really confident about our application that okay, the app works as we intend because of the tests. So that's what's going on. Yeah, no problem at all. So I'm working on the second edition now, and hopefully this is going to come out at the end of the year. So I'm what you see there on the blurred side, that is the book or the document that will be converted into the book, inshallah. Okay, so yeah, this is probably not going to be as interesting or as fast, so to say, because you'll see me coding, but you'll also see me writing a bunch of things in the book as well. Okay, so okay, so then we have, okay, so I've written about, so far I've written about the submit button. Let's talk about having the version log. Okay, then we check if the logs, because we should be seeing, all right, when I have submitted a valid version, I check there is only one log in the view, then the test runs further, and then I expect there to be two logs, which happens right here. So right now there's one log. If I submit something valid, then there are now two logs. So that is one of the tests that we have written for Cypress. So let's write this in the book as well. Then we check if the logs, or if there is a new log added to the logs list when a valid version is submitted. We do this following code. Okay, so in this case, we are checking it right here. And I think the interesting part here is this one. Exactly. So I think this is where we should be. This is what we should be talking about in the book. Pa, 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 pa. Oops. Hmm. Okay, so in this case, we check if there's a new log added to the logs list when a valid version is submitted. We do this by the important chunk of code for this test is as follows. So this one is what we should be talking about. Why do we really need it? So we can say that, notice that we get the list of logs, that is the log items. Then we use the EQ1 to get the second element from the list, mm, from the list, and then we use the dot then method. Here, the dot then method is really interesting. The reason why we use the dot then method is that otherwise we cannot get the text with the trimmed value. So when you're writing Cypress tests, you will find yourself in situations where sometimes, because I could do this as well. So let me show you why we want to do this instead of the shorter version. So a shorter version of this would be getting the EQ1 and then doing a dot should have text and then this. If I run this, let's see what happens in the test. So you're going to see that this one will fail. You see? And the reason for that is that sometimes when we render things in the HTML, we have this problem where we get spaces between. So now here we are trying to say, hey, the text should be version text changed to 0.0.1, but the actual text had this space in the beginning and this space at the end. So this is a problem for us. Now, one way of fixing it would be in the VC logs input. You see here, we have the log, right? So we could have changed this, and I think that might fix it. Is that from the right file, CY forms? Let's see. Oh, would I have to restart the app? I think I would have to restart the app because Cypress most likely builds it, or the setup builds it and doesn't run that in dev version, I think. So let's see. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see. So compiled. Generating browser application bundle, phase setup, but this is live development server. What then? Why did it not change my code before? Anyways, so now if I try to go to my Cypress window, start E2E testing. Like this. We'll see. So maybe now it will fix it. Nope. So you can see still I get some spaces. Even after setting the logs to that thing, this guy still has a problem. So that means it doesn't really matter in this case, because then I would have to actually make this div like this. And then this div also, I mean, this div would have to go like this. Let's see. And now you see that this passes. So the problem with this situation is that I cannot have this formatted like this, because then it adds a bit of trimming to it. So that was the reason why we had to use this should. So we said should, or sorry, the then, and then we can get the element text and trim it, and then we can go forward with that. So that makes things much easier for us. So then we can remove this line and get back this guy. Oops. Cool. Now we know. So now, then we use the EQ1 to get the second element from the list, and then we use the then method to use JQLite, or when then we use it to get the element. When we use then, this element is of type jQuery HTML element. So then we can use some methods from jQuery. Then we check the so to get the jQuery query, is it jQuery HTML element or just element? HTML element, right? So jQuery HTML element. So we can use the trim method on the text. Okay, so let's also add that so that we can use the trim method on the text content of the element. This is because when writing HTML in a formatted way, we can end up having white spaces in the text content. So it is a good idea to trim the text before using the expect function against the expected value. Okay, I think this sort of sums up why did we use this guy. Cool. Mm. Okay. Then I think so the trim method. So then method, trim method. Okay. The latest version, we don't need to care about that. Okay. And then I think for the cases where we want to check that the appropriate errors are being displayed, we ensure the following. We can say the error element exists on the DOM. Then we check the error element is visible on the view. Visible on the view. Visible to the user, rather. Visible to the user. And finally, the error element has the appropriate error message. Notice that we use the then method in of errors method to get the error elements in order to trim the text content before assertions. or test assertions, similar to what we did for the log items text content validation. Okay, I think this is nice. Too. Let's see if the okay, so the links work still. That's nice. Cool. All right, we are finished with one more recipe. Now I can focus on the next one. Let's bring this guy down. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna wear my glasses so I don't get the eye infection again. Okay, how many recipes remaining? I think there's one. No, two or three more. Mm-hmm. Okay, so in this case, then let's have a look at the tests as well. So now that we have all of this, let's run the copy command. So npm run copy chapter 11 ngcy forms e to e. Cool. So now we should have one in final as well. Yep, there we go. So git add final, and there should be just this change. So in this case, I think I want everything but the first one. So let's remove everything apart from the get header title, and then we will keep the first test and remove the rest of them. So this is where the reader will essentially start. Okay, status, git add, git log, and I think this is what we can commit. Final files, git status, checkout, main. Let's merge this one. Git merge. Oh, what was the name of the branch? Git branch. It was feed ngcy forms e to e. Git merge. Git push. Cool. There we go. Git branch. I'm gonna delete this because I don't need that anymore. So git branch -t chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5. Git branch. Let's remove these two as well. Git branch delete this guy and the test http test response. I think we can take this one actually, ng test http test response. Let's do a test for that one. So the recipe name, and let me also bring in the content as well. Let's see if I can go there. Content, no. Overview, no. Docs. So this guy, outline. Let's see. So for the outline, we did talk about setting up unit tests, testing for input and submission. I think, yeah, okay. So for this test, for this whole chapter, we don't change anything. So that's good. Waiting for a search or request to finish. Okay, let's see. So we can do something like npm run create chapter 11 ngcy xhr, or http requests. Okay, so this is maybe rename this to waiting for http request to finish, right? Maybe http request, and then this is the name. So maybe waiting for http requests to or maybe waiting for http requests is enough. In Cypress, let's keep it like this. I'm going to use jest for this. So I'm going to do a bunch of copy pasta now. Close all. And it was ng test http response, right? So let's see if I can find anything that I can copy. So users JSON, this is going to be copied, and this is inside assets. So chapter 11 app assets. So this goes there. Then we have the app having user interface, app component, services. I mean, we could have used signal here for, let's go with Angular signal here. So I'm gonna say route, user interface, app component, component CSS. But we also had the test for this as well, right? No, we didn't. Oh, okay. I think we should rather look into the final one then. So final apps, chapter 10, HTTP response, this guy here, user interface, services, and test. So in here we should have more tests, right? Mock data, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so let's go with services, and then I'm thinking, do we really need services here? Or we'll see. So service and then user interface. And I mean, even app component could be useful there. HTML maybe not so much, but we'll see. Or even the app. All right, we'll copy the app component HTML as well. CSS, nothing to copy. Styles, nothing to copy. Okay, so in this case, let's copy services, component TS, and user interface. Copy. Let's go here. App, chapter 11, HTTP request, source, app, delete the component TS file. Then we do a paste inside. So we got services, component TS, everything looks good. Let's run the app. So npm run serve ng cy http request. And what I was thinking was, instead of using services, or not services, but you see here we have observable. So instead of having an observable, we might just want to use a signal. Let's see. So where are you? Let's go here. Let's refresh. Something is wrong. Of course, HTTP client. So we need to go to our main TS, config TS. So here we would have to add a provide router. Here we would have to provide a, what do you call it? Provide HTTP client. Here we can say with fetch. So we use this guy. And now the app works. Yay! And now all we need to do is copy the code from app component HTML. This is the one. Copy, copy. Go to our starter file, paste it in the HTML. Let's see. And there we go. So this is the app. And now I think the whole idea would be to wait for the response and then do something. Although I am thinking if it should be more than this. So testing a user. I'm thinking. Can I make NX app dependent on other app? So NX run dependent app. But how does what I want to do is not this, not this. Nope. Let me see if I can. If I can find something. So chat. Okay, so in this case, we can check all right, let's try something. So if I go to the project.json. So here I think I should also be able to command, right? And the command should also be possible to say error true. So maybe I can do two things at once. Or would I do it in the commands section? So not here, maybe here. Nope, doesn't work here. But this is built, right? Serve. Serve configuration, dev server. So in this case, should I then use, I don't know. I mean, I can try to have commands or options. Nope. So if I change this serve, let's say I comment this guy out. Is it JSON? You can't comment it, but okay. So if I had to use something else, let's see, NX workspace executors, right? So this one, local executor. Okay. If you don't have a local plugin, run NX to generate one. Okay. Okay, I'm thinking if there's an easier way to do it this. If I run the command here that says ng serve. No. So what is the dev server's default command? Angular dev kit. Let's see. Build Angular. So this one, if I go to browser, dev server, server protector. I want to see the code and essentially okay, interesting. So dev kit is schematics. Schematics should contain the no, I can command here. So this one is build Angular dev server. So if I go to collection schema JSON dev, so okay. Architect source. But then wait a second, the builders. What do we have in builders? Okay, that's helpful. Build Angular dev server. So build Angular. Dev server. There we go. Schema. So what do you usually have? We have port, host, proxy config, SSL key, SSL certificate, headers, open, serve path, HMR, watch, force ES build. Oh, nothing that says command. So additional commands, nope. Allowed host, nope. Hmm. Okay, so that means I can't really add anything on top of it, to be honest. So command, no, I don't think I can add a command here. So host, blah, 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 proxy, public host, nothing apart from it. Okay, so we can't do it in that case. So then if I go and say localhost 3000, I should be able to see what? 3 is it 3111? Is it 30011? No. Where does my backend run? Give me 1 second. So when we run server now, when we run server.sh, when we run web server, we run fake BE, right? So then if I go to CodewithAhsan and if I go to E2E, fake BE, source, app, main TS. So we look at 3333. Okay, so 3333. Yeah, then I can see a lot of code that says the route. So exclude CodewithAhsan. Then which files are these? So rx retry, http calls, ngrxfx, bucket. Okay. So I'm thinking if I should keep this very, very simple or add a bit to it so it's a bit more complex than being really simple. RF async validator. Maybe we can go with the reactive async validator. I think that's chapter 8. Thinking. I think we can go with either this one because then we have a version validator, right? This one. This one can also have the other errors as well. So let's go with this one. ng rf async validator. Okay, so our application changes now completely. So this is not going to be the one. ng rf async validator. This should be in final. So final, this guy, we have some components. We have config in which we provide the HTTP client. That's fine. Routes, no routes. Issues, main TS, no problem. This guy, no issues. Oh, where did you go? Come back here. So components, this file changes and this file changes a bit, just version control, but I think apart from that everything looks good. So components and copy and version service. So let's go to our app, this guy, this right here, and then we delete the component.ts, unfortunately, but then we also add more things to it. So then we have services. We remove the user service, we don't need it. Then we have the app component.ts, and here we have the app version control, app version control. Oh, main. But you do have the app. No, wait a second. Or maybe I need to restart this again. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Okay, so we have the app running now. That's good. Let's close this guy. Let's go here. But the problem would be if I try to run the, yeah, I would see a lot of calls. Reset. I don't know what that is. But if I say 222, a call goes to my backend, but my backend is dead, so it doesn't work. Of course, it doesn't. So in this case, let's revert what we added there. And then I should rather run this guy with npm run serve or whatever the command was, just with server. So we have the fake backend also running, and we have the app running as well. So let's see. There we have the front end running, and we should have the backend running as well. Was it with server? I think it was with server, right? Yeah. Then it should run this guy cd into CodewithAhsan and then run the backend as well, but I don't see the backend. Oh, there you go. npm run fake be serve. But my server, I don't see the server. Oh, there we go. Now it runs. So now if I refresh there, should be 0.0.2. And there you go. Valid version. Error null. And then if I do this, then we have the version number is required. But if I do 0.1.3, and now you see the error pattern comes from the backend. So we know that this is what we can work with. So I think, yeah, let's go with this test. So that means we are gonna have to copy something from the previous one. So and we're gonna also have to start the end-to-end test for we also want the test, the end-to-end test as well. So this is fun and games, but when we run the test, but when we run the Cypress test, we should not be working with the actual API calls. I'm thinking. Or we should just go with the users list. All right, I think I'm thinking. So it should be a users. Okay, I'm thinking. So if I try to talk to the user service.js, so we have ng services test stubs. This is the one where we have no. Nope, not this one. User service. So ng route params, I think this is the one that we are looking for, which was the closest to us. Yeah, this is the one. My bad. I need to copy this one. Okay. So users, user detail, user, component TS, data, service spec. Do we have a config? We do have a config and routes as well. Oh, do we have CSS? No. Spec TS. Don't really care. But then, okay. So components, user details, users, TS, config routes, data, user service, user service. Let's copy this guy. Are we copying from start? No, we should be copying from final. And which was that? Chapter 7, ng route params. Chapter 7, ng route params, the components, user detail, user, TS, config route, data, user service, TS. Okay, so let's go here to our project. Let's close this guy. So this goes away. This goes away. This. This. They go away. Yes, please. Yeah, delete. So now let's see. I'm gonna have to run this again. One of the spec TS file depends on NX component. Let's delete this guy as well as the title test as well. So we're not gonna have this guy here. Let's refresh this. Let's go here. And I think here all we need to do is now to use app root. No, not really, not root. This should be router outlet. Yeah, there we go. Cool. So this is what I was supposed to look at. Mr. Matt is asking, please, Ahsan, can you make a video about the best practices to folder structure in an Angular project? Sure, I can do that. I'll take a note of it. So you said folder structure Angular. Mr. Mad. YouTube. Cool. Noted. So if I click this, we go here. Oh, we're missing some styles. What is styles that I miss? From where? Style CSS. There you go. So I have to put these into our style.css here. And look at that. Now this makes much more sense. So go back. Yay. Seems nice. I can click this. And now we have this. Okay. So then I think then we are pretty close to. Oh, but the images. How do we get the images? Do we get it from the network calls? I think we do. So this is where this is coming from. Yeah, random user me API. Yes. Okay. So anyways, so then we can talk about this recipe now. So testing user interface, transition distance of V2 testing. And we also need to create, the end-to-end test file. But I think this is nice. So we can go from there. We have the right title. We have the right app. So let's do git add, git commit m, work in progress, ngcy, http requests. Then let's create the end-to-end test. So readme. I remember putting some information on how to create. What happened? My Visual Studio Code died on me. Rich.com. Hi, what are you building? I'm working on the Angular Cookbook, that second edition of the Angular Cookbook, and that includes a lot of recipes. So I'm working on one of the recipes, that would involve end-to-end testing with Cypress. So that's what I'm working on right now. So I was working with npm run serve ng ht no ngcy http requests with server. So essentially right now, and I have an app that works with, or it doesn't require with server actually. It can run without it. So this one requires, or this one brings some data from random user API, and we're gonna start writing some tests. So ideally, clicking here, looking at the ID, making sure we have some related content as well, some similar users here, here. Yeah, seems like what we are gonna work on. So this recipe is probably gonna be pretty close to how it was in the first edition. I think what changed was how it looked. So yeah, I think when we look at searching, no, it also had search capabilities as well, but we'll see. So testing user blah 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 with the outcome. All right, so I'm gonna look into the in here what happened to this guy. So network, now I get one. Oh, I think it randomly, what are you talking about? So if I go here, I think it randomly sends back a couple of them, as far as I remember. Did I do some magic in the recipe to make it random? I am the cause of my own problems. Where are my apps? Chapter 11. Requests, source, app, maybe user service. Let's see. Yeah, I do some things. I do some magic there. I do get similar. It takes a random number of users and just sends it back. That makes perfect sense, but it should have at least one. So maybe just add that, because some guy actually got one, or not sorry, some use case had 0 similar users. So at least find one, I would say. Right? So every time it finds at least one. Okay, that makes sense. So now that we have this running, let's do some copy pasta. So we know the problem. I have a problem, and the problem is we're not making any HTTP calls. That's a problem. So this data should be a JSON, which should be this right here, right? And then we could, yeah, this doesn't make sense. So I would have to take out the data from here and paste it in a JSON. So let's go here, cut this. Then we go with the users JSON. We should have an array. Let's replace all of it. So we are always getting, we're always making an API call. Oh no, I have to stringify this. The stringify problem. All right, so cons users equals this guy, and we do a users JSON stringify users, or let's do 2. No, null 2. No, let's remove this, and now we can copy the array. Where's my message? Here you are. And now I can paste this here, Control K, Control F, and there we go. nice little JSON stringified JSON. Okay, so now that we have this, let's say that we have a type. So we can say user service. No. We should have a user.interface.ts. So user.interface.ts const no export interface user, and there we go. So we can go ahead with saying something like, hey, gonna be string, and this is gonna be a string 2, string 3, no equals right here. Then this guy is gonna have string title, string first, also string last, surprise, string. Remove the comma, Control A, Control K, Control F. Cool. So now we have user here. We can get the user from the interface file. We can delete the data file. And now from the service, we can now work with the HTTP call to actually get send back all the data. So now we can do something like, I think first of all, we would have to have the config providing the HTTP client. So we have that. Oops. Provide HTTP client. And this should come from import from Angular common HTTP. And this should say provide HTTP client and also with fetch. So with fetch. Now that we have this, let's go to our user service. In HTTP equals inject HTTP client. Now that we have this, we can work with the user. So here we can now say something like return this dot http dot get assets user, or should I say, no, I would have to say backslash assets users dot json. And here we can say that when we get this guy, it's a user array. And yeah, that's pretty much it, right? And now when we do get by ID, we just need to filter this. So we can say this wait a second. Yeah, so in here we can say return this dot get all dot pipe, and then from RxJS we are going to use a map function here, and the map gets the users, which should be of type users. If you mouse over, you'll see users array, but then we can say return users dot find, and this would either, no, wait a second. So this should be not user undefined, but an observable of user undefined. This makes sense. This should be observable. This should be observable of users array. Get similar. It's also going to be of observable users array. So let's fix this guy. And you can do all the magic that you want, but do it after all of this. So then you do this guy. So you return. And then once you're done, you do this. Oops. Users dot filter users dot length -1. Okay, so this should work, right? But the problem now is our app would not work because we've changed a bunch of things. So if I refresh this guy, a lot of things would fail because we have issues in our HTML which are trying to do something crazy by not understanding this is an observable. So if I go to my users list here, we inject and then we just do get all. So instead of doing that, let's use signals. So I'm going to say implements ng or on init. So when we init, we can say something like ng on init, and here we can say this dot user service, oops, dot, is it get all? Yes, it is. Then we can say subscribe, next. And I think I personally like this notation much more than the next n, or the one that takes two handlers. I mean, I do. Now that I think about it, you could use the catch in a pipe in that case as well, but nope, I think it's fine. So next is the one, and then we say this, we're going to create a signal for users. So users equals signal. Signal is going to come from Angular core. This is going to be user array, having an empty array just like this. Rich.com says, I use JavaScript for building front-end website, but I have issues of site being slow while using the web APIs. Well, how do you mean slow? Is the server slow, or does it take too much time to render stuff? How would you define slow? In this case, we should get users, and this should be of type user. And then we could just say this dot users dot set, and then here we have users. So this is using the new Angular signals. And now we can go ahead into our template, and then here we can just say just get the users, and this should be fine. Okay, but now the user details, let's fix that. So in here we should have two things. So we have the user that we are signing right there. So instead of doing that, let's use a signal. So user equals signal user null, and this user should come from this user should come from user interface. Oh, it should be signal. Sign crypto. So in this case, we have the user signal that is essentially null in the beginning. Then we should also have another one similar, users equals signal. So we are creating a signal of user array with an empty array. Now, when we do route param pipe, we can get similar users. So we tap, get the UUID. Then what do? We say, okay, so we don't need to do this guy. But then we can use a map right here, right? So we do a map. So we get the UUID, filter UUID, blah, blah, blah. Then we can say return, or I mean, we could use merge map instead. So merge map, return this guy. But the problem now is I have this UUID that I want to use, but I would have to then send it forward. Or, I mean, why don't we use a fork join then? So we can do return fork join, because we want both of these calls to come in parallel. So this guy, and then also we can do this guy as well. What is the UUID? Is string. Okay. So then we have So Rich says it takes too much time to render stuff like the image and the text on web page. What can I do to increase the performance? So I think there are a number of things. First of all, make sure that the image is suitable for every dimension for that matter. So for example, if it's a mobile phone, optimize it for mobile phone. If it's a desktop, then or laptop orientation or the screen for the user, then optimize it for that. Make sure to remove the critical path. The problem is performance is a huge topic and you would have to analyze completely your web application to improve performance. So make sure there are no blocking scripts. Make sure that the data that you're retrieving is retrieved after the first render. Um, your server is fast enough, your client or the use or your server is closer to the client's location. So if your market is US, then your servers should be in the US, or you should have edge functionality somehow. So I hope that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Okay, so here we would have to now subscribe, and then what we get here is essentially the first one would get similar users and the second one would get user. So then we can say this dot similar users dot set similar users, this dot user dot set user, right? Easy peasy. Oh, the user could be undefined as well. Mm-hmm. I don't think so. Mm, or it could be. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean we could go with undefined as well. The reason we're going with but then shouldn't I say just this and this? No. Oh, wait a second. So it needs. I think the signal needs a default value, right? Was not provided. Yeah, I think it needs. Yeah, but then this becomes a bit tricky. Um, okay, so then I can say something like user or null, and this should be null as it was before. Now we're happy. Who's using the data file? User list component. Remove. Imported from interface. Yay! Everything's green. It says thank you very much. No problem at all. All right, let's have a look at the app. So if I refresh now, it still works, but now with the actual user JSON. Now if I go to Thomas Porres, ooh, I don't see anything here. And that is because my camera should be dead. Let me replace the camera or the camera battery. And then I would have to go as well. So see if I can fix this. So now I can remove the observables and just say ng if user, and then here also I can get the value of user dot name dot first, user dot name dot last, and this is possibly null. So if it's user, can we do as user? Then I should be able to say user, and similarly this one goes with similar users as same users, And there we go. Now we see the actual user Thomas and the suggested user as well. Nice. Cool. All right, this is good. So we have the app running. That means that we should be able to work with the recipe soon. Hmm. Okay, Cypress fixer to provide mock data. All right, so there are only two recipes left. This one and the next one for this chapter. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna finish this tomorrow because I think I need to be in all of my senses in order to write this accurately. So I'm gonna actually right. So I'm gonna actually do it later. But thank you everyone who chimed in, and I hope you learned something at least about signals. So I'm gonna see you later. Thank you everyone, and take care.